to the EQ Fit podcast. Our mission is to equip people to prosper in every aspect of their life. Whether you're at home or in the workplace, we explore practical ways of improving success, satisfaction, finding balance, and building enjoyable and beneficial relationships. Thank you for joining us. Last time we talked about leading with emotional intelligence, and we came from a general overview perspective. I now want to break that down over the next several episodes into specific areas of emotional intelligence that are so critical to leadership. And I want to start today with just an understanding of the foundation of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness. There are 5 major categories, or 3, depending on which model you look at. I generally will talk about the 5-category model. It's the one that most people are aware of. That is self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. We're going to focus on what I believe to be the foundation of emotional intelligence skills and competencies, and that is self-awareness. Without self-awareness, there just isn't much moving forward. And I'll explain that as we go through this today and talk about it. But I really like to start with a story. In some ways, this is a sad story, but in other ways, it's kind of an exciting and encouraging story. And you may resonate with this story. This may be something that resonates with you, or you've had a similar type of experience. Well, let me start. Recently, I have been working with someone who has very, very low self-awareness. This individual is a senior leader in an organization. I'm sharing this story because it is a vivid example of how a lack of a critical emotional intelligence competency, in this case self-awareness, can negatively impact everyone. And when I say everyone in this person's life, I mean exactly that. Everyone at work, sure, but everyone at home as well. The self-awareness, just to get a general idea of what we're talking about here, it's the ability to understand your own emotions and your own patterns or habits and how those impact you. It is also an awareness of how you are showing up for other people. Both of these are critical leadership skills if you want leadership success. Leadership, again, and I say this a lot, it's about influence. It's not about authority. If you think you're a leader by just demanding and telling people to do things because you have a position of authority over them, that's not leadership. Or some may say it's the lowest form of leadership, but bottom line, it really is not leadership. Leadership in many ways is so much more enjoyable and brings so much greater success if we put some effort into understanding the skills that we need to become good leaders. And that's what I'm trying to do through this entire podcast and through all of the episodes where we talk about leadership. As I'm working with this person, it has become crystal clear to me that their lack of self-awareness is manifesting in a lot of different ways, and in very negative or disruptive ways. They attempt to lead people by constantly expressing their authority over them, which tends to make people defensive. I don't think any of us like someone who is in authority over us, giving us orders, giving us things to do, where it's more about do what I tell you, don't do what I do. And there's a lot of that involved here as well. Their communication is generally unclear, and it sends mixed signals to people. And we really, really try to avoid a few things in organizations. And that could be businesses, it can be nonprofits, it could be whatever. We try to avoid confusion. We try to avoid uncertainty. And we really, really try to avoid sending mixed signals because it just generates the first two I talked about. It generates confusion, it generates uncertainty. And every one of those takes away from time, focus, energy, and effort, which are the four primary things that most people control themselves. Even if they're told to do something, they don't have to do it. We do choose how we spend those four resources. So, communication clarity is so important. This individual also struggles to navigate their own emotions, which really creates distractions and disruptions in the workplace. And I'm sure it does at home as well. This person has a massive gap in their willingness to genuinely listen to other people, what they're feeling, what their perspectives are. And constantly, this individual talks over others. Someone may start saying something, and then all of a sudden, this leader jumps in and just talks right over them. And that belittles people. It makes them feel like, well, I guess what I say is not important. This person also has created a great deal of confusion for other people due to a lack of what I would call good decision making. Are these decisions well thought out, or are they more impulsive? And that goes to behavior as well. A lot of times what this person says and what they do often cross the line for what is acceptable in the workplace. And that's a very serious concern. That's something that can lead to a toxic work environment, or what some people call a hostile work environment. None of that is good. None of that is productive or profitable. The focus of this individual is very short term, with very little thought to long-term consequences. That just shows you some of the things that come out of low self-awareness. When we think about that, you may say something like, wow, how strange, surely that's not normal. Unfortunately, it's a lot more common than you might think. 53% of leader managers are currently in some phase of burnout. I probably have mentioned that before. That comes right out of the Microsoft Workplace study. Now, 6 Seconds put out their State of the Heart study recently that measures emotional intelligence scores and what's going on with them. There is a decline for several years in a row. Emotional intelligence scores are going down consistently year after year for the last several years. On top of that, that leads to a significant gap in self-awareness. To kind of close out this story, fortunately, I'm working with this individual to enhance their self-awareness, which is going to come through growing their emotional intelligence skills and competencies. And I want to send a quick message here. For anybody who thinks that emotional intelligence skill development is just soft skills that have minimum value, or it's a fad that's going to pass, it's just one of those fads, you think that way at your own risk. You think that way at the risk of your leadership and your organization. The recent Gallup State of the Global Workplace study shows that 70% of employee engagement is determined by how well their manager connects and builds trust with them. 70% of the variance in how well employees are engaged directly relate to how well their managers connect with them and build trust. That's huge. People don't leave companies, they leave managers. That saying has been around a long time. That's not my saying. And I really don't know who said it first, or I would give them the credit. It is a very wise insight. Think of it this way. Turnover costs can be minimized, but only when leader managers have the skills to engage, maintain, and retain good employees. So, among the various facets of emotional intelligence, that's why we start with this focus on self awareness. It is foundational, it's crucial for personal and professional growth, both, not just for leaders, for team members as well. But we're really focused on leadership right now. And as I've said before, everybody's a leader because they have to lead themselves. Even employees as team members are leaders. We're going to explore this concept of self awareness in a deeper way, how important it is in emotional intelligence, and the role it has in leadership skill development and success. Also, I want to provide some practical strategies for leaders to enhance their self awareness. First, let's just do a better definition of self awareness. Is the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. It involves a conscious knowledge of one's character, feelings, motives, and desires. Self aware individuals can objectively assess their strengths and weaknesses, leading to a more balanced and a more authentic approach to both life and work. Now, self awareness as a part of emotional intelligence was popularized by Daniel Goleman and comprises the 5 key components that we talked about. Self awareness is where we're talking about today, it's where we're going to live today. Then it's going to be self regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Among those, self awareness is the cornerstone. And I cannot stress that enough. Without an accurate self-perception, it's challenging to be able to regulate your emotions, to empathize with others, or even to build meaningful relationships. To take it one step further and really truly start to connect self-awareness and how it relates to leadership, think of it in 2 ways. Internal self-awareness, understanding your inner states, your inner emotional state, your preferences, the resources available to you, your intuitions, all of those things. It's really a true in-depth understanding of you and who you are. The second way to look at this is external self-awareness, understanding how others perceive you. These aspects of self-awareness are interdependent. They depend on each other. Enhancing internal self-awareness fosters better external self-awareness and vice versa. Now, let's go deeper into how we can start to apply that to increase and enhance our leadership. Okay, for leaders, self-awareness it's indispensable. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. It serves as a mirror reflecting leaders' emotional landscape, their strengths, and areas for improvement. If you don't have a good idea of who you are, what your strengths are, what your gaps are, how your emotions impact you, how your emotions and your triggers impact the way you interact with others, and how other people's emotions trigger you or impact you, all of those things are tied up in this thing called self-awareness. Now, here's how self-awareness contributes to leadership skill development and success. And this is what I work with people extensively on in coaching, in training, in workshops, in team building. Think of these key benefits and ways of leveraging emotional intelligence. Number 1, informed decision making. Leaders who understand their biases and emotional triggers make more rational and balanced decisions. Enhanced communication. Self-aware leaders communicate more effectively with other people as they can articulate their thoughts and emotions much more clearly. That makes sense, right? If you're not clear in your own mind, how are you going to communicate clearly with other people? Number 3, improve relationships. By recognizing and managing their emotional responses, leaders build stronger, trust based relationships. Number 4, resilience. Self aware leaders are better equipped to handle stress and setbacks, maintaining a positive outlook and inspiring their teams. And number 5 here, and it's just as important as all the rest of these, authenticity. Authentic leadership grounded in self awareness. That just means being who you are and knowing who you are. Fosters trust and loyalty among team members. Now, those 5 things, when we really look at them, informed decision making, enhanced communication, improved relationships, resilience, authenticity, those are key leadership aspects that can be leveraged to build high performing teams. So, what are the benefits of a leader taking the time to go through this? And don't get hung up on that word leader. As I've said, everybody's a leader, right? And you may be a worker on a team in an IT company, or you may be in a medical healthcare facility, or whatever it is, and you may be young and you may think you're a long way away from leadership. But I want you to think about this. How many people do you interact with on a weekly basis? Because every one of those interactions is an opportunity for you to be a leader and to practice your leadership growth, to enhance your skills, to try new things, to become the leader that someday you want to be. And it doesn't matter if that ends up being a stay-at-home parent, or somebody who's working out of their home, or somebody who's traveling all over the world and doing things. Leadership is such a key element in human interaction. And we are drawn to people that we might call it charisma, we might call it a lot of different things, but what it really boils down to is the essential skills of what makes a good leader. That's what draws people. It's what engages people. So what are the benefits of all of this? Well, greater emotional regulation. Understanding your own emotions leads to better control over your reactions and your behaviors. Increased empathy. Now, that's a skill itself of emotional intelligence, but you can't practice empathy at a very high level if you don't have good self-awareness. Self-awareness enhances that ability to understand and empathize with other people, which is absolutely crucial for leaders. Am I saying that you should put up with people's drama? No, that's not what I'm saying. And I get a lot of these tech types, and they may be engineers, they might be IT related or whatever. I get a lot of people that have these technical backgrounds and certifications and expertise and degrees and all of that. And they get, the minute you say emotion, they get really confused. And they start to push away from it because it's not comfortable for them. They're more convergent thinkers, not divergent thinkers. They tend to shy away from things they're less comfortable with, like emotions, because in their world, things follow sequences and patterns, and all of that is great. But let me tell you something. So do emotions. So does neuroscience. All of this is coming out of neuroscience. So when we talk about the ability to increase empathy with others, it's science, folks. And as leaders, we should be scientific leaders. I have a group of people I know around the world that call themselves neuro leadership coaches. And that's an excellent definition or term for what they do. They leverage neuroscience to help leaders become better at what they do. And that's what I do. Strategic vision. Here's another. This is so important. Self-aware leaders can align their personal values with organizational goals, driving strategic vision and mission. And I can tell you right now that you cannot access your higher thinking capabilities when you are in the cycle of strong emotions. You have to be able to navigate those. But even before you can navigate those, you have to be aware of them and how they're impacting you. You would, maybe not. I was going to say, you would be surprised at how many leaders and owners of companies and all of that I know that cannot define and understand the emotions they're having. But then maybe you've seen that yourself. There's a lot of people out there that struggle with truly understanding it, but then they get a little bit of understanding. They read a book or they listen to something about emotional intelligence, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I know how to deal with that. I'll kind of compartmentalize that, or I'll put that over here. And all of that is a surface level approach. And here's the key, and here's where the correlation comes in. A surface level approach is only going to get you a surface level return on investment when it comes to leading people. The deeper you go into this stuff, the more and better you can connect, build trust, influence others, and practice empathy and navigate emotions and recognize patterns and enhance your emotional literacy. The better you can do those things, the better leader you're going to be. Because most of leadership is about getting other people to do things that you want them to do with this collaborative approach where you're not doing it yourself, but you're encouraging and empowering them to get things done. Leadership is about getting things done through other people. It's that simple. And other people are not widgets. They are unique. The last one here is continuous improvement. Recognizing areas for growth allows leaders to seek feedback and invest in personal development. And isn't that what we all want? We all want to grow and get better because that means more success and more satisfaction. Okay, let's break this down. Let's get this to that bottom level where we can really start to build that foundation of self-awareness with some very specific skills, talk about those, and then how do we put those into practice to build this self-awareness that is the cornerstone of great leadership. Well, the first thing we want to look at is a couple of literal skills of emotional intelligence. Enhance emotional literacy. What is that? It involves developing the ability to identify and understand your emotions and the emotions of other people. It requires recognizing the nuances of emotional expressions and understanding how those emotions impact thoughts and behaviors, both in ourselves and in other people. If you can just start to do that better, your leadership impact goes up immediately because you're not operating in a vacuum at that point. You're operating with better information and better insights. And that's what this whole thing is about. Gaining better insights so we can make better decisions and we can do a better job of connecting and building trust and influencing people and building high-performing teams. Now, why is enhanced emotional literacy important for leaders and for growing leadership impact? Number one, improved communication. Leaders with high emotional literacy can better express their feelings and understand the emotional messages that others are sending, which leads to clearer and more effective communication. Number two, stronger relationships. Understanding emotions helps leaders build trust and rapport with team members, and that fosters a more supportive and a more collaborative environment. That's part of that culture thing that we want to develop in our teams. Number 3, better decision making. By recognizing their own emotional states and those of other people, leaders can make more informed and balanced decisions. And that avoids impulsive reactions and the negative fallout that can come from that. And number 4, and very important, conflict resolution. I just did a workshop recently, and part of it was talking about preparing for conflict. And it's so funny because people see conflict as this horrible, awful, nasty thing that they would avoid at all costs. And that's not everybody, but it's the majority of people out there feel that way. They would avoid conflict if they could. The thing is, conflict itself is not a bad thing. It just means there's a difference of opinions, there's a difference of approaches, there are unresolved things going on, therefore they are at conflict. Conflict can be very healthy and can be good for organizations. Iron sharpens iron. We make each other better by working through these conflicts. So conflict resolution is a critical skill for leaders. And leaders who are emotionally literate can navigate the conflicts with empathy and with understanding, which leads to better outcomes. Okay, this enhanced emotional literacy. How do we practically apply that? Well, number 1, active listening. Truly make a habit of actively listening to team members, paying attention not just to their words, but to their tone, their body language, the emotional cues that they're giving. And then do regular check-ins. Hold regular one-on-one meetings with team members to discuss their feelings and concerns. And I highly promote, when it comes to performance evaluation, I promote a forward-looking weekly coaching process. And I'll deal with that in another episode, and I'll go into a lot more detail. That's a lot of the work that we help leaders and organizations with, as well as because the backward-looking annual evaluation thing is, I'm sorry, it's horrible. I mean, it just, you can do it in the best way possible. It still does not have anywhere near the positive impact as a forward-looking coaching performance evaluation process. Use of emotional language. I think a lot of people run from emotional language, but here's the thing. If you're not happy with somebody, but you keep all that bottled up inside and don't say anything, you may act on that unhappiness. And they're trying to figure out, okay, what the heck's going on? My boss is mad at me, or something's going on. But what if you just said, hey, when you did this, it caused me to feel this way. It created some stress for me. And now I've got to figure out, how do we come back together and get this thing fixed? How much better of a way is that to approach it than just to blow it off and then just punish people? And even if you don't know you're doing it, you'll probably do it in some fashion. This is about excellence in leadership. This is about becoming a leader worth following. Not just, I just need to get through the day. That's not what I'm here to try and help people become. And then emotional journaling. Keep an emotional journal to track and reflect on your emotions throughout the day. This is absolutely critical for leaders in one aspect, and I want to share that with you. When you go through a situation, a scenario that things didn't go well, you need to capture that. What happened? What was I thinking? What was I feeling? What did I do? What did I say? What decision did I make? What action did I take? Thinking about it now, if I could go back, how would I change it? What would I change? If you do that exercise, and I know people go, oh, journaling, oh my gosh. It's a simple writing it down. Writing it down is very important. If you can do that, it makes a huge difference. Your leadership will improve because you're journaling, you're chronicling these things, and you're learning as you go through that. Wait a minute. When a situation like this comes up again, It's just like that other situation. And I knew that now that I wish I knew then that I want to try it in a new direction. I want to try something different. By the way, that's also where we're going next, which is recognizing patterns. And that is the second key skill in self awareness. It involves identifying recurring emotional responses and behaviors in yourself and in other people. A lot of people call these habits or possibly neural pathways. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. Recognizing patterns is a skill that helps in understanding what the underlying causes are of the patterns and then predicting future emotional responses. Now, if you want to go a lot deeper on this, I've got some episodes on habit story. It's a new assessment that I'm certified in. I mean, it's just fantastic. I'm not going to go into that now, but I want you to know that we can take this much, much deeper. It isn't just recognizing the habit or the pattern. It's now we know what to do with them. Now we can measure productive habits and counterproductive habits on the same scale. And we can measure response patterns and emotional states. And I'm always going to be one who comes from a place of getting good data and good insights first. Why would you not do that in some of the most important decisions in life? So, how does this whole thing of recognizing patterns help a leader? Well, proactive management. This is going to make the manager more proactive. It's going to be a more tailored leadership approach. Instead of some cookie cutter thing, when people talk to me about, oh, we're doing organizational development, we're all reading a book together. Bless your heart, that's great. The problem with that is every one of those people reading that book is a unique individual with unique needs, skills, gaps, weaknesses, strengths, all of that. And so one book, a template, is not going to get you very far down the road to enhancing that team environment. Is it better than nothing? Yes, absolutely. But as a leader, don't stop there. Don't settle for, I checked it off my box because we did something. If you really want to invest in your people, then invest in your people, invest in yourself, and do things that will take you to the next level. Not just change, but true transformation. What else about recognizing patterns? Well, you can enhance problem solving. That's something we can all use, right? And at the same time, you can reduce stress. So recognizing patterns brings some huge benefits. How do you practically apply this? You can look at behaviors, do behavioral analysis, understand the behaviors, the interactions, what is the root cause of things. Do feedback loops. Establish feedback loops where team members can share their observations. If you can create a culture of feedback, that is going to give you so much more in your culture, in your team, because feedback is a gift and feedback is important. And if you can create that safe place where people will be able to offer feedback, constructive feedback, you're going to move your team to a whole new level of performance, a much better place. Stress management techniques could be very helpful in practically applying this recognizing pattern skill set, using things like mindfulness or stress relief activities. Sometimes we need to decompress before we can analyze things. That's part of what we're talking about here. And then training and development. This is pretty common sense here. Offer training and development that focuses on emotional intelligence, recognizing patterns. I get so much reward out of working with people and watching the light come on for them when they understand how these things really not just impact them, but how it's going to make their life so much better. Now let's close this out by understanding, what do we do with this? Because this isn't just, oh, here's a bunch of information, I hope it's good for you. No. How do we build high-performing teams with what we're learning here about self-awareness? Well, by integrating these competencies and these skills, We can create a culture of emotional awareness. We can encourage our team members to develop their own emotional literacy and pattern recognition skills. And then this can be shared with others. It's going to create a more cohesive team, a team that cares, a team that wants to be higher functioning and higher performing. It's also leading by example. The leader needs to show that they're willing to invest and do the work themselves. That's the kind of behavior you want to model for your team members. You can promote more open communication, which means we're creating a psychologically safe environment where there is an equality of conversational sharing. Those two things came out of the Google study on teams, and they are the two most important things to high-performing teams. You'd think it'd be behavior or personality styles or whatever. Bottom line, it's those two things. And how you get there? By growing emotional intelligence skills and self-awareness in leaders and in their team members. And you then celebrate emotional growth. Don't let these light bulb moments go by without some celebration, both for yourself and for other people. I know for me, when I accomplish something significant, I have built in a celebration process where I reward myself and celebrate for that accomplishment because I need that, and it helps me to focus on that, to lock in the learning from that, and to grow to the next level. So by focusing on these specific skills, you can unlock the full potential of your leadership, but also of your team members' performance and capabilities. Self-awareness is the bedrock of emotional intelligence, and it's a critical driver of effective leadership. By understanding and managing our emotions as leaders, we can make better decisions, we can build stronger relationships, we can inspire our teams towards success, we can empower our people. Embracing practices that enhance self-awareness, they don't just foster personal growth, but it paves the way for us to be more authentic, more empathetic, and more resilient. And right now, in our world today, we as leaders need that more than we have ever needed it before. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you have any questions about this week's episode, or maybe a suggestion for future episodes you'd like us to explore, please contact us through our website at eqfit.org. For more information and inspiration, connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube at EQFit.